Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to NWA Power, episode number 3 for October 22nd, 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been following NWA Power from the first episode 2 weeks ago, and I've been pretty much keeping an eye out for it. I've watched every episode, and tonight is the first time I'm ever going to do a review on NWA Power. I have went out of my way to actually do these reviews now because one of my one of the viewers on one of my videos back on AEW's review for Dynamite, he asked if I could go ahead and start putting in reviews on NWA Power and give my thoughts to you guys about how I felt about the shows and do this as a weekly thing. Well, based on how crappy WWE is and how I'm totally disconnected with the product, I'm going to provide you guys NWA Power as well as Major League Fusion reviews. With Major League Fusion, I will start doing them after the pay-per-view for November 2nd called Super Fight, and I may end up buying that pay-per-view. It's only $19.95. Depending on my finances, I may actually go ahead and get it and watch it live as it happens and give you guys my review on that and how everything went down. Now, granted, I'm not very familiar with all the talent on both of these programs, but there are a couple of them that I am very familiar with because of the fact they wrestled in other promotions that I usually watch. So going into things, we had Eddie Kingston call out the Dawsons to kick things off for the show. That was actually a very good little promo he did. His disapproval for the championship match that he had last week for the tag team titles with him and Homicide got screwed over by the Dawsons. So he requested to have a match with them tonight to go one-on-one with them. Unfortunately, later on during the night, the Dawsons answered their question and said no to that request and would fight anybody else but them. So that was the situation on that. Marty Bell faced Crystal Rose. Marty Bell and Crystal Rose, I have no idea what these two talents. The talent in the ring between these two women are pretty decent. Not too shabby, but nothing to cry home about. Marty Bell did defeat Crystal Rose in that match. Not that anybody really cares because I don't think they really got enough build-up behind their name and building up the brand of the name of Marty Bell and Crystal Rose. As I mentioned before, the Dawsons caught a promo on Eddie Kingston and Homicide and says they'll fight anyone but those two. So that's pretty much that. Aaron Stevens later on during the show comes out. Aaron Stevens being formerly known as Damian Sandow, as you guys all may know him from WWE, and he actually did have a small stunt in TNA Impact Wrestling, and now he's on this company, or in this company, I should say. He releases this video package of this movie that he says that people are saying that his acting skills are absolutely horrible, and he had a nice little interaction with the crowd, too. The crowd was calling him Captain Morgan because of the way he was dressed. He was dressed up in pirate gear, which didn't make him look like Captain Morgan. He actually put his leg, or his foot, on top of a box of some sort, crate box or something like that, and looking like Captain Morgan, then shaking his head no. Very entertaining stuff there. They showed a video package of this movie that he's so-called doing, Tropical Pirates. I don't know if this is actually a movie or just like a little stunt to, kind of give him some kind of gimmick that he's an actor, as if he's like The Miz. Only The Miz is a real actor, only he's not that great of an actor. So that's pretty much the whole situation on that. I didn't really care for the video package whatsoever, but the Captain Morgan thing I thought was great. His interaction with the crowd was awesome. Very much a lot of entertaining segments with the crowd interacting with the wrestlers, which is one of the key things about this show that I like. There's not a whole lot of shows that interact with the crowd very much. The only thing that comes close to that or reminds me of that right now is AEW Dynamite with Chris Jericho and the audience. He answers a lot of things that they say and do towards him and stuff like that, which is very cool. So that's pretty much the situation with Aaron Stevens. He's got a nice little gimmick, very much like what he did in WWE, only he's not making a buffoon out of himself. He's just portraying one person and being an actor and what have you. We then had Caleb Connolly versus Dan Parker. Caleb Conley, I should say. Caleb Conley defeated Dan Parker. Let me repeat that again. Caleb Connolly defeated Dan Parker. Dan Parker, being a Canadian wrestler, was actually pretty good. Liked his interaction with Connolly and also the crowd, saying that he's a Canadian and he can't beat him and blah, blah, blah. He had some kind of charisma about him and whatnot. He was very cocky and arrogant in the ring. But at the end of the day, he loses to Caleb Connolly, and that's pretty much that. The match was very good. Decent pretty much. I will go on stating this. If there's one thing I can critique Jimmy Cornette about his commentating skills, he does a lot of degrading of people and says a lot of off-the-wall shit that makes absolutely no fucking sense. I find him to be a very weird commentator. I like his voice, but at the same time, he just seems like a fucking asshole. That's just my opinion. I hope that doesn't give me any hatred towards any of you guys who view this and really like Jim Cornette, but I just find what he says sometimes on the mic as to be completely nonsense and kind of stupid. Not like Jerry Lawler type shit, but kind of like idiotic things that make no sense. But it's not as bad as Jerry Lawler. Let me just put it that way. So we have Tim Storm address his loss to Aldis and calls him a true champion, which I actually did enjoy. I like how they're making Nick Aldis. He kind of seems to portray a heel-like character, but at the same time isn't doing heel-like things. He's a guy that's very... seems like he needs a Kamel to be his insurance policy, yet she doesn't do anything, supposedly. But at the same time, she's supposedly able to help him win. And that's kind of weird in itself. But at the end of the day, he is really a good champion. He doesn't cheat to win. He's very, very old school mentality, which I like about Nick Aldis' character. I think that's very cool about him. He went under the name Magnus in TNA, and since leaving TNA, he has really developed a great character. He's turned into an outstanding athlete as a wrestler, and his character gimmick is very good. It's very much similar to the type of old school type of mentality that you're used to seeing back in Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes days, and even before that, like Billy Graham and other wrestlers that are even old school back in the 50s type mentality. So I do like that about him. So Tim Storm goes on and on stating that he pretty much lost the match and he's no longer able to challenge for the NWA championship for the rest of his career. And pretty much he feels at that point that it's time for him to let go and time to retire. But everyone in the crowd loves him, and he tells... so Eli Drake comes out, interrupts him, and he says, "This sounds like you're going to quit." But everyone in the crowd loves him. He tells Storm that the ride isn't over and says that they will team to face the Dawsons tonight. It's pretty much insinuating that he'd like to win the tag team titles with Tim Storm. who's a really old dude. He's 53 years old, which I think is very weird. That he's still performing, and he's not bad either in the ring for a guy 53 years old. So I give him a lot of credit. I don't know much about him outside of the championship he had with the NWA title and then losing it to Nick Aldis, and then from there getting a rematch for the title a year or so later afterwards, and that was pretty much it. So after Eli Drake tries to talk some sense into him to not quit, Tim Storm tells him, "I'll think about it and let you know it by the end of the night before we have the match." So that was pretty much it. Josephus comes out and says he wants to apologize to James Storm and shake his hand. Instead, Colt Cabana comes out pretending he's the cowboy, James Storm, and Josephus gives Cabana a cowboy hat and a beer. I think somebody in the crowd even said, "Smash the bottle over his head," to Cabana, which I think would have been a good idea, because eventually this leads to his demise. He actually gets some really weirded out shit thrown in his face. Look like some kind of white powder. And then James Storm comes out and he super kicks Josephus, and Ken Anderson saves Cabana because it looked like James Storm was going to kick Cabana in the face for imitating him at the same time. So that was pretty much that segment overall. Then we had Nick Aldis come out with Camille. They were interviewed by Joe Galley, who is actually one of the commentators with Jim Cornette. He asks Nick Aldis and says that a lot of people are gunning to be the number one contenders, such as Storm, Eli Drake, and Ricky Starks. Ricky Starks, he stated that he would draft him if he had his own company or brand that he would like to form a wrestling promotion. He would actually have him as his first pick. I have to agree with him. Ricky Starks was performing last week. He really gave a great in-ring performance for the amount of time that he had. Not to mention, he actually has a great charisma about him. He is very talkative. He knows what to say, how to say it, and he comes off cocky as a motherfucker, and he looks great doing it. It sounds great. So he's a great wrestler. I actually enjoyed watching him last week, and I can't wait to see him again perform on NWA Power in the next episode or in the future. But Nick Aldis goes on, however, nobody has moved to the front of the pack, so he's going to let it play out. Pretty much a lot of old school coming out of Nick Aldis. Not really a whole lot of cockiness coming out of his mouth. He's really interested in whoever is the best opponent for him to face one-on-one, and that's how he feels that should go down for him to defend his title against. He also mentioned that he would also be willing to defend the title outside the company, like somebody else outside from another promotion facing him one-on-one for the NWA Championship. So I think that would be kind of cool if they bring something up like that later on down the road. We then get the main event with the Dawsons defeating Eli Drake and Tim Storm one-on-one in a tag team match. Tim Storm actually supposedly, quote-unquote, gets injured here, acting out his old age, being 53 years old, and goes ahead and he's pretty much hurt throughout the match. This plays a big part in the matchup, and they lose the match altogether with Eli Drake and Tim Storm. The Dawsons then attack Tim Storm after the match is over, and Homicide and Kingston make the save after the Dawsons continue the attack on Storm. We also see Nick Aldis and Eli Drake kind of concerned about Tim Storm's health and what's going on with his back, and that's how the show closes out. So that's pretty much the overall deal with this show. It was pretty decent, not bad. Good old school classic wrestling. And just mainly just about championships and matchups and careers and what have you. So very solid, entertaining show, worth your hour. I would definitely catch it. A lot better than Monday Night Raw, I'll tell you that much. Or fucking SmackDown for that matter. Anyway, guys, hit the like button if you liked the video. Hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to the channel. And leave a comment down below and I'll get back to you on that. I thank you very much for watching. Good night.